Okay, so I have an Apple TV, and I've been watching Harvey Birdman, and every morning I wake up and I sit on my recliner just to watch the program that Brett Buck calls must-see TV. And it's all fun and good and fun until I try to get up or my cat bites my penis and I get scared and I start flailing around. And then the TV remote falls into the cushions, and then I have to get up and spend the next 10 minutes looking for this tiny piece of shit. This is the definition of form over function. A touchpad that's too sensitive, but it's so fucking thin, it phases through matter. I hate this object. This is the bane of my incredibly uninteresting life. And besides this, yeah, Apple does some shady shit. They got the price jacking up, the slowing of the phones, of the Chinese slaves.
Apple does one of the best jobs of any companies in our industry, and maybe in any industry, of understanding the working conditions in our supply chain. For a factory, it's a pretty nice factory. We had this in my hometown of Palo Alto. We've had some copycat suicides.
Lots of interesting angles for a Knowledge Hub video where I dissect why this company is so bad and why it's ruining America. But I'm not going to talk about that. I mean, you already know what I'm going to say, right? I'm going to say, this company's bad, they do the bad things, this guy's bad, you're bad. But not today, because this is personal. So Steve Jobs, a man with many faces, a hippie, a business dude, Ashton Kutcher, and a corpse. I don't know him personally, but from what I've seen and heard and read, I'm gonna say he was just a dirty bastard, a sociopath. He didn't invent things, he wasn't that much of a visionary, he just knew how to surround himself with more talented people, then he'd get them to work on shit, and he'd take credit. From the beginning, he was kind of a scumbag. I mean, he would cheat his friends out of money and just let them do all the work. Now, is this a harsh assessment of a very dead man? So, he was in charge of this company for a while, and then he got fired, and then he's like, I'm gonna make my own company. I'll show you. And you know, the people working for him make some stuff, and Apple, they're not really making stuff. So then they buy his stuff, and he goes back to Apple. So then 2000 whatever, the iPod comes out. Now, it ain't the first digital music player, and iTunes isn't the first digital music store, but gosh darn it, it's a hit. And that's mostly because Apple put strict copyright protection, and the music labels are like, hey, less pirating, more money. Yeah, it also looks pretty nice. It's sleek, sexy, it's something you wouldn't mind sticking your willy into. This, along with the clean lines, the silhouetted logo, it made the iPod something of a fashion statement. Buying this thing told everybody at the Streetlight Manifesto concert that you are the shizzle. After this, the public perception of Apple had shifted. No longer was it a company that would sell your father a beige brick of silicon chips. No, they've become the purveyor of sick licks. But see, when a company's name or logo begins to overshadow the actual product itself, you might get some problems.
Today, Apple is going to reinvent the phone. And here it is.
The iPhone, everybody. The iPhone. Look, before this, smartphones did exist. They were just kind of shit. And then the iPhone launched, and, well, it was less shitty than the others. Had a big old screen. Touching it feels good. Just slap that meat on there. Now, it wasn't perfect. There wasn't an app store, and it didn't have 3G because gotta give people a reason to upgrade next year. It was like a PDA, but it did so much. It was just a PDA. Nobody expected the iPhone to become what it became, to sell like it do. And this is where everything changes. Not for the world, because I mean, somebody else would have made a good smartphone eventually, but this is where everything changes for the Apple. See, before this, Apple had iTunes, they had the iPod, they had the Macintosh, and at this point, those were all relevant. But give it a few years and Spotify is going to take a big fat dump on this thing, and this is a novelty of the past. The Mac, luckily, remains a niche in the computer market, but, you know, no one really wants to buy one unless they have to. Almost everything that comes after this point that gives Apple modern relevancy is because of the iPhone. Think about the big innovations Apple has brought about to us these past few years. First, we got the iPhone. Then we got the big iPhone. We got the small iPhone. We got the really big iPhone. The bigger iPhone, and then the biggest iPhone. We get a watch that tells you how much much time you've been on your iPhone, and a TV box that has a really shitty remote. So instead, you're probably just gonna have to use your iPhone. Without this singular item, Apple and Steve Jobs' legacies would have faded into the nightmare realm. So instead, we got this timeline. And in this timeline, we also got another special gift. See, one day, Steve Jobs wrote an email. And yeah, I'm sure he wrote a lot of emails, but this one was special. It leaked one day. That's why it's special, because we actually get to read it. I won't bore you with the whole thing, but in short, he says some stuff like this. Computers, they're dead. We are in a post-PC era. Mobile computing for everybody, forever, no going back. So yeah, that's not entirely true today, but he also makes a point to talk about something called the inventor's dilemma, a reference to a 1997 book that outlines the following concept. So say a company makes some groundbreaking technology, and every year they make a newer version. Over time, the product becomes better, and they make a lot of money. But then at some point, another company makes something completely new that makes this entire product line look like dog shit. The lesson is, if you don't make completely new shit, people won't buy new shit. Yeah, and again, he barely mentions the Mac at all. The whole idea of traditional computing seems like a dead medium to him. And honestly, I think if he were still alive and he had his way, the Mac would probably have had the same fate as Google Stadia. Now, if that doesn't make sense right now, just wait a year. Also, he hints at our eventual corporate dystopia with the line, tie all of our products together so we further lock customers into our ecosystem. What a fucking hero. If you don't like the new iPhone and you're tempted by that new Moto Razr, well, too bad, shithead.
You do have phones, don't you?
Actually, no, I can't figure mine out.
It's a strategy that boldly relies on giving people less options, because it really doesn't matter what you do, how much you innovate, if you know people have to buy your shit. And then Jobs died. I know a lot of people cite that he was like a staunch vegetarian. From what I've heard, this is what gave him cancer or whatever. So there's your free fast fact for the day. Vegetables give you cancer, kids. So then when he dies, Apple is left to their own devices. These devices specifically. First off, the iPad mini. It's just a tiny iPad, it's a big iPhone. Innovating per se, but Apple's version of innovation has always been, look at what others are doing, and then let's just do that. And I remember back when this launched, people thought, wow, well, Apple's gonna die soon, because Stevie Boy was keeping the company afloat. But Apple, they had a secret weapon to ensure their success. They had a monopoly, not on phones, or computers, or shitty TV remotes, but on just being Apple. That inherent quality, that fact if you want their software, you need to buy their devices. Or, for the less technically inclined, this has a nice logo and it's shiny, and if you buy it, you are hip and with it. I don't want to give the impression that everybody that buys Apple products does so because they're uninformed or shallow or stupid. No, I mean, I buy Apple. I buy a lot of Apple stuff, mostly the iPad and the Mac that I hate, but I get them because the software sometimes does do its job. iOS works fine, and the iPad has a little pencil so you can draw all your sexy fan art. The Apple TV is a decent streaming box. That brand loyalty matters. The brand identity matters. And once people are in, you gotta lock them in. This gave birth to their new philosophy, form over function. These are products designed to look good first and foremost. The company's focus is only on this. The company's relevance relies on it. The Mac, the iPad, the Apple TV, the credit card. You could get rid of all of that, and Apple still wouldn't be hurting too bad. One major success in a company's history that will probably keep them afloat forever. A new Apple product line may launch, and it'll probably sell pretty well at first, and then most people will forget it. But that iPhone is always going to be there. Unless it's not, and then Apple's just dead. So at the end of the day, let's just remember what all of this is about. This Apple TV remote is terrible, and I'm still looking for it. This is Tyler of Knowledge Hub.